Yo, what is up guys? Ethan here, back in another video, and today we return with college football videos. As today we will be recapping week 6. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. And the word I would describe week 6 is curiosity, as yes, tons of things happened this week, but more than anything, it's just making me more curious about how these teams are going to be projected towards the future. Some teams really impressed me this week, like TCU, and then some teams disappointed me. So we will get into that in those games in a minute. But the first game I want to talk about, no players even on the thumbnail, because Jimbo Fisher wanted to be special and called one of the worst red zone plays of all time. Well, not all time, but from what I've witnessed. As number 1 Alabama survived at home versus Texas A&M 24-20. And Johnny Manziel was livid on Twitter about this game. If you didn't know, Johnny Manziel is the Heisman winner Texas A&M had in the early 2000s. He said, one of the worst calls I've ever seen in my life. You had one play to beat the number 1 team in the country, and this is what should be run. It was basically a curl route to Evan Stewart, and let's just say the curl route that he called didn't even go in the end zone. When he threw it, he was at the 1 yard line, and he was double covered anyway. So, awful call. And overall, Alabama, I understand Bryce Young was out, but I knew this game was going to be close. Well, not super close like this, but I expected Texas A&M to at least cover that spread. And I'm just worried about Alabama. And as you will see in my Week 7 predictions, as we will talk about Bama, Tennessee, and we will talk about Tennessee versus LSU in a little bit, but overall, if Bryce Young does not play, I am generally concerned about Alabama winning at Rocky Top next week. And I legit think if Bryce Young's out, I think Tennessee can win that game. And it's all going to decide if Bryce Young plays. He was suited up, but he didn't start, as Jalen Milroe did play the entire game. But yeah, Haynes King did surprisingly well, at least in my opinion. I thought he passed it a little bit better than I anticipated. Jalen Milroe had ups and downs. It was just overall the turnovers and missed field goals from both teams that just killed this game and why this game was overall close. But Alabama survives at home, and we'll definitely see if Alabama's legit or not next week as they go into Tennessee. Next game I want to talk about, number 17 TCU beats number 19 Kansas 38-31. And the main thing is Quentin Johnston, man, went off this game. TCU's number 1 wide receiver, 14 receptions, 206 yards, and a touchdown. What a crazy stat line. But the main thing about this game was how it ended. 2 controversial calls at the end. One was a horse collar and one was a pass interference. Now, in my personal opinion, I would have let the horse collar slide. That was a good no call. But that pass interference was so obvious, and that should have been a first down for Kansas. But to be fair, Jason Bean did have a few bad throws on that drive. And why was he in? Jalen Daniels got hurt midway through this game, so Jason Bean had to come in, my bad. But he looked pretty good, and then that last drive he kind of sold. But overall, besides that interception in that last drive, he looked really good for this Kansas team. But TCU definitely has surprised me this year. I had them going 4-8. They've officially surpassed my official prediction. And if TCU is not top 12 this upcoming week, heading into their big-time game home versus Oklahoma State, I'll be surprised. And like I said in my predictions, this is definitely going to be a game where both teams deserve the win. I just predicted Kansas. Also had a similar score to this, but TCU won. And personally, I would have Kansas still in my top 25, around that 25 mark. Next game I want to talk about is number 14 NC State defeating Florida State at home 19-17. So technically I was correct on that plus 3.5, but I wasn't correct that Florida State would win outright. And to be fair, Jordan Travis looked pretty good in this game, excluding those 2 interceptions. And that last interception, I'm not even going to blame Travis on it. Micah Pittman just didn't read it well. Or maybe Travis just expected him to do a different route. Just some miscommunication. But on the other end, NC State really didn't look good in this game. Devin Leary did get hurt in this game, I'm pretty sure. Yes, he did, towards that latter half of the game. But overall, NC State was just super gritty in this game. One of the most grittiest teams in all of the college football, I would say. NC State has a big time game next week as they had to head up to Syracuse, and Syracuse currently is undefeated, so look out for that game. But Florida State has another big time test, home versus Clemson. Let's see if Florida State will lose 3 games in a row. A game I was completely wrong on. Number 18 UCLA dominantly defeated number 11 Utah at home, 42-32. And this was more of a UCLA blowout than the score initiates. And personally, I thought Utah was going to win this game, answer the haters wrong. But UCLA is legit. I thought they were good, but not this good. This defense totally surprised me. Zach Charbonnet on the ground almost had 200 rushing yards. Dorian Thompson-Robinson almost had 300 passing yards as well as 4 touchdowns. And if it wasn't for that Clark Phillips pick 6 at the end, he would have had a phenomenal, perfect game. And overall, with this UCLA team, this defense is amazing. This receiving core is very deep and very spread out, so DTR has tons of options to throw to. And it's going to be really intriguing how UCLA comes off after their bye week and heads up to Eugene for that Oregon game, as Oregon's offense seems legit elite and one of the best offenses, period, in the country. But Utah, this is not the best way to go, as you have a big time game next week, home versus USC. But UCLA definitely surprised me, and I'm definitely on the UCLA hype train as of right now. And another team seems affected after the Michigan State curse, as Washington loses 2 straight games. Arizona State upsets them at home 45-38. And it was mainly just Washington's offense was not able to get going. Michael Penix didn't even have a passing touchdown today. And this Arizona State offense was just going crazy on this defense. Washington definitely needs to get some holes fixed. And it just seems like once a Pac-12 team gets ranked, they just can't maintain it. Big time win for Arizona State. Next game I'll be talking about is number 8 Tennessee defeating number 25 LSU on the road 40-13. I thought Tennessee was going to win this game, but not scoring this much or even blowing out LSU like they did on the road. And I just have a big question. Is Tennessee legit a college football playoff contender? We will find that out next week, as they will host Alabama. Jeez, I'm stuttering. My bad. But Hendon Hooker, another phenomenal game. And the big time thing is Cedric Tillman going to be back and healthy for that game next week versus Alabama. That's just the big thing on Tennessee's season. Big time win for Tennessee, but next week will legit show if they are going to be a legit team. Notre Dame gets a big time win in Vegas over number 16 BYU, 28-20. Michael Mayer, a phenomenal game. One of the best tight end performances I've seen in college football in a few years. Solidified himself as the best tight end in college football. Man, oh man, this Notre Dame team looks completely different after those 2 losses. And after that Cal game, of course. But they stepped up at the passing game in the North Carolina game. And they continued that success here in Vegas today. Great win for Notre Dame. And maybe Marcus Freeman got this Notre Dame team back on their steps where they were supposed to be at the beginning of the season. Jaren Hall, I knew he was overrated, but the stats didn't show it. He did not have a great game today versus this Notre Dame defense. I do think he will bounce back, but this is a killer loss for BYU, as they do have a tough matchup next week, home versus Arkansas. Michigan defeats Indiana 31-10, and I'm only including this because the halftime at the first half, this was a really close game, and then Michigan scored 21 unanswered in the second half. Indiana had Michigan's hand for the first half, then Michigan just pulled away with the win. And Michigan has a big time game next week, home versus Penn State. That's going to be a big noon kickoff. Michigan, that's like 5 straight big noon kickoffs. Kind of get on my nerves. But we'll see how Michigan is versus a true team in Penn State. Texas just obliterated Oklahoma 49-0. Are you kidding me, Oklahoma? I know Quinn Ewers is back for Texas, but you're going to go scoreless? I understand you have injuries, but this is plain out embarrassing. And if you don't pick it up next week, home versus Kansas, there's going to be legit issues with this Oklahoma team. If there hasn't been already, man, oh man, Oklahoma needs to get this fixed up. And what this game showed me is Quinn Ewers is probably a top 10, 15 quarterback in college football. And this Texas team would probably be undefeated if Quinn Ewers wasn't hurt. Now I'm going to start picking up these games a little bit. Number 24, Cincinnati struggled versus South Florida at home this week, 28-24. I understand Cincinnati was without their top wide receiver, But still, Cincinnati, this should have not been a close game. And personally, even though I love Cincinnati, they should be outside of the top 25 as of right now. Number 7, Oklahoma survives at home versus Texas Tech 41-31. Texas Tech had a backup quarterback, and I was surprised they've kept this game as close as it was. Oklahoma State looks good, better than I thought, and they have a big-time game next week, home versus TCU. Mississippi State just throttled Arkansas 40-17. And when I had Arkansas with the upset pick, I thought KJ Jefferson was playing. As a matter of fact, he was hurt and was not playing in this game. If I knew that, I would have 100% taken Mississippi State. But Mississippi State looks legit, and they have a good game next week on the road at Kentucky. This Mississippi State team seems legit, and Will Rogers is one of the most underrated quarterbacks, if not the most underrated quarterback in all of college football. Pittsburgh beat Virginia Tech at home 45-29, and I'm only bringing this up because Israel Abanikanda just went off in this game. He had over 30 rushing attempts, over 300 yards. I'm going to say it was like 360 yards. I'm not looking at the exact stat line currently. And 6 rushing touchdowns. I know this Virginia Tech defense is not it. Brent Pry has to work on the defense this offseason or during the season because this Virginia Tech team looks abysmal currently. But Pittsburgh, they're not going to be ranked, but Abanikanda, what a game. And this Virginia Tech defense, far worse than I originally anticipated. Purdue did go on the road and defeat Maryland 31-29. As of right now, I would say Purdue is probably the front runner to win the Big Ten West. Aiden O'Connell is just leading this team. Looking really good for Purdue currently. Maryland was a tough loss, but at the same time, it really wasn't a bad loss either, as Purdue is getting good, and it was a close game at the end. Look out for Purdue, folks. Number 6, USC defeated Washington State at home 30-14. This game was a little bit more lopsided than I actually thought. I thought it would be a tad closer. Cam Ward did look good at certain points in the game, but this defense just was not able to maintain the level of speed and talent with this USC offense. And USC has a tough test next week on the road at Utah. South Carolina went on the road and defeated number 13 Kentucky 24-14. And Will Levis was out in this game, so that was probably the big thing for Kentucky. But still, South Carolina has not looked good at certain points this year, especially at the beginning half. So this is not a best look for Kentucky, even though Will Levis was out for this game. People are ranking South Carolina. I will not do that personally, as I need to see more of South Carolina to personally rank them. But great win for the Gamecocks. And now I'm going to talk about the rest of the games I want to talk about for today. Ole Miss struggled versus Vanderbilt early, but eventually pulled away on the road 52-28. Ohio State just throttled Michigan State like every one of us thought, 49-20. Illinois defeated Iowa in one of the most boring games of the season, 9-6. Number 2, Georgia defeated Auburn at home 42-10. Fire Brian Harsin. Oregon State had a crazy catch to end this game and to win this game on the road at Stanford, 28-27. UTSA wins a big-time Conference USA game versus Western Kentucky, 31-28. App State loses on the road. I told y'all they were not legit versus Texas State, 36-24. Number 20, Kansas State defeats Iowa State on the road, 10-9. Another boring game alongside Illinois, Iowa. And finally, Oregon defeated Arizona on the road, 49-22. And personally, this might be Oregon's best offense since Marcus Mariota. Big time win for the Ducks, but going into the bye, they have a big time matchup versus the red hot UCLA Bruins. And that is it for the Week 6 recap. My bad for stuttering. I do have a little bit of a stuffy nose because of allergies, but that's besides the point. Great Week 6. I'm only expecting great things for next week, as Week 7 has an absolutely loaded slate. And yeah, like always, like, share, subscribe, push notifications on so you don't miss any of my videos. Share this video so we can grow this Elk NCAA community. And like always, have a good day. Peace out.